Sometimes as a kid, I used to feel as if that I live a really boring life, and looking at these other kids who were fairly extroverted seemed really cool to me, and I thought back to myself that I was the one who was really boring. Maybe I just had a boring life. And back in the day, the answer to this particular question wasn't really amusing at all. It rather made me feel like a piece of shit. It rather made me feel as if something was wrong with myself. Fast forward to all these years. I'm almost 20 now. I'll be 20 probably by the time you're watching this particular video. Maybe I'm still like that. But the thing that has changed over that particular course of time is the fact that I feel amazing about it. It's almost to the point that I feel like I have this sense of superiority over others. Not just at a mental level, but also in real life. It makes me feel like I'm overall a better person somehow. Those guys, the same guys who I thought were like cool and shit, are just like nowhere to be found. I mean, they still post a lot of stuff right there on social media, on Instagram, Snapchat, and a bunch of these social media platforms. But I know the reality. They're not necessarily doing great. They post a bunch of stuff and they pretend to be something else, you know, being cool and shit. But they're not really like that. Their reality is completely different from what they pretend to be. Most of them just somehow pretend to be fine, as if their life is going great and everything seems to be in order. Especially in sort of like this age of social media, it is very easy to feel like a piece of shit. You look at other people's life, whether it's on Instagram, somebody's traveling, you think to yourself, hey, maybe I should also travel. I'm not traveling, so henceforth there's something wrong with my life. And a larger impact of all of that is even on LinkedIn. Not a lot of people really talk about LinkedIn, but LinkedIn also affects mental health for a lot of people. You look at all these people who are doing such good work. They're doing all these cool internships, they're going through projects, you know, being involved in some boot camp, something that makes them superior to you. So there are two things that I'll be talking about in this particular video. But before I talk about these two things, no, it's not a sponsor of the video. I haven't just, you know, used that particular number that somebody would just sponsor me and share. I would like to thank Nikhil from Captain Sinbad. Nikhil made this video about 7-8 months ago. It's been more than 6 months, by the way. Nikhil made this video about why he lived a boring life, and as someone who is Indian, who's a brown kid, I could relate to that video more than probably anybody else could have. So that video sort of like gave me confidence to make a video like this, because it's like really weird talking about such topics in my video. Thank you, Nikhil, by the way, for making that video. I'll be talking about a plethora of things, but I'll be dividing this video mainly into two parts. In the very first part of this video, I'll be talking about the reasons why I live very boring life, as people may like to call it, but in reality, I'm living every day to a set of habits, a set of daily rituals, you may call it. Then in the second part of the video, which is going to be much more conclusive and short in comparison to the first part, I'll be talking about how you can sort of like maintain that overall lifestyle and live a overall better life. I mean, there's no reason not to live an overall better life. So I'll be talking about how you can also maintain that lifestyle for you as well. So part 1. Why live a boring life? Great question. A major reason why I like to live the kind of life which is filled up continuously with all of these activities that have something work related to do. Why live a boring life? Get straight to the point. Let's cut through all the bullshit. So there are two reasons. Reason 1, it provides me with the ability to stick to a stoic way of living. It helps me to build routines and habits. It helps me to stick with them. Also, on the contrary side of the spectrum, sticking to habits provides me with freedom, which in turn helps me to do the things that I want to do, rather than, you know, seem like a really boring person to the vast majority of the audience, vast majority of the people that surround me. This is something that author James Clear has also talked about in this book, Atomic Habits. You would have heard about Atomic Habits at least a million times in the world of self-help. All your favorite productivity YouTubers talk about Atomic Habits all the time, whether it's Ali Abdal, Thomas Frank, Captain Sinbad himself. Everywhere talks about Atomic Habits. So in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, one of the things that I really like, James Clear straight up mentioned, I think it's in the very first or the second chapter of the book, he talks about how having a structured day, having that quote-unquote boring life, as I'm calling it, how having sort of like a structured day provides you with freedom. People think that building these habits, building sort of like these routines where you do one thing after the other in this continuous manner and run this thing in a loop, people think that it will restrain their freedom, but in reality it does provide you with a lot of freedom. For example, me going to college, I know the path of going to college. I don't have to ask every single person like where this road leads to, where this path leads to, where do I have to tap my card to enter the metro station, from where do I have to pick the train, where do I have to go, where do I have to leave, you know, all these questions one after the other. I'm just going in this manner. I'm mindlessly traveling through things. Most of the time when I'm running my day, there's stuff going on right inside of my head, but there's me taking action, me going through a bunch of stuff. I don't have to think about all of those things. You know, this lag, let's say, you know, that happens in between, this lag is gone. I don't have to sit at every every single point and have to think to myself back again and again. Everything happens super smoothly. So I prefer waking up early, and by early I mean like 6:30 a.m. depending upon kind of like the day I have. Sometimes I have to set my alarm to a spot that I even wake up earlier, but it's not necessarily late than that. And that doesn't really matter how much work I have. Doesn't really matter even if I go back to sleep at like, let's say 2 a.m. By the way, I'm filming this video at like 1:21 a.m. as my watch reads over here. So it doesn't really matter. I'll still wake up at 6:30 a.m. but I stick to a routine. I don't shift things too much. It won't be like I'll wake up at 12 p.m. the other day, sleep for just 8 hours straight or something like that. So I do not engage in activities that in some way or the other ruins my routine, ruins this structured day, ruins this what Thanos called as a balance. Things are perfectly balanced, as Thanos called it. I don't like to do things like that. I also spend less time on phone. Spending less time on phone doesn't necessarily imply on spending less time on social media, but it rather applies of cutting out from the outer world. One of the major reasons I like to spend less time on social media, and I'm a big advocate of that, I suggest people to cut away from social media as much as they can and only choose the people that they want to watch on social media, even if you want to use social media, let's suppose. And the reason why I think so is because the moment you do that, it cuts you away from the outer world. You are there by yourself. You realize the problems that you have in your life, and more importantly, it makes you forget about self-importance. More often than not, people sort of like indulge in activities that make them feel as if they're superior to the others, and hence as a result of that, they deserve more money, they deserve more fame, they deserve more attention and whatnot. And maybe that's true, but in reality, mostly it's not true. The world doesn't operate like that. Your real value in this capitalistic world, in this monetary world, very precisely defined in the terms of value that you're adding into other people's life. Not even necessarily who you are as a person, even though that sort of like sits in a fairly debatable territory. But the matter of fact is that you may be a good friend, maybe you're a good husband, maybe you're a good person, but if you do not add enough value to other people's life, you do not get the results. Like, you do not get the attention that you deserve, you do not get the money that you want, you do not get the fame that you want, you do not just receive the things that you want. And at last, it also helps me achieve several things that may seem trivial to a lot of people that are just somehow related to me or a part of me that kind of like define my overall personality, like working out, specifically running, reading books. I read a fair bit of books. I call myself an avid reader. I read 30-40 books. Last year, I think I read 28-30 books. I'm not Ali Abdal. I don't read 400 books a year. Full disclosure, I'm not your productivity YouTuber. Do not even give me that tag because I'm not even close to those guys. But I'm into reading, also into journaling. I'm even into like note taking and stuff. If you have watched, Obsidian stuff, shamelessly plugging myself, you can go and check my Obsidian course. It's completely free. It has an amazing review. Every video has over like 2,000 views and stuff. For my kind of channel size, it blows my skull apart. The reason why I have achieved all of those things is because I simply live a boring life. My life is not interesting at all, to be honest. If you think from that landscape of people having a really interesting life, you look at all these YouTubers, you look at all these influencers, celebrities, music artists, pop stars, rappers, NBA players. You think to yourself that all these guys are having such a fun life. They're on this like really fancy $40 million boat and they're enjoying their life. They're partying, they're drinking, they're doing a bunch of stuff. They're surrounded by a lot of girls, That's kind of like what most 20-year-olds want, The easiest way to look cool in your 20s is, if you have a lot of women surrounding you, that means you're cool. That's it. Because you have such short-sightedness that you think that's quote-unquote the only thing that defines you as a person. But coming back to the video, the reason my life is sitting in that particular spot is because I, at a personal level, live a fairly boring life. So reason second, freedom. I've talked about freedom earlier as well, and all of this does build a lot of freedom in almost every other aspect of life. It helps you financially. It builds a lot of freedom financially. A lot of people out there really want to be financially free, but they're heading in the wrong direction. For example, you look at these guys who are really rich. Maybe that's doctors. You can even take extreme examples of celebrities and stuff, and I'm also coming on to that. But let's say take the example of a doctor. Doctors make easily $500,000. But the problem with that is they're not necessarily wealthy. They're just rich because their lifestyle is slowly and steadily escalating every year. So kind of like their burning rate is too high that they do not have any money left at the end of the day. And even like celebrities and stuff, these guys making tens of thousands of dollars a month, like even hundreds and thousands of dollars a month, some even making millions. Most of these guys are not necessarily wealthy. They're just rich. They just make a money, blow a lot of money away, make a money, blow a lot of money away. That's kind of like how their life sits in this weird loop. It also provides you with a lot of mental freedom. And part of the reason why I'm saying so is because you sort of like sit in this position where you limit all of your interactions with the outer world. You engage yourself in these like meaningful conversations, and even on top of that, you just do not care about what other people think of you. You are just content with yourself. You spend less time wondering what others are doing. And when you do all of this, you realize that how much the outer world really affects your inner happiness. And this is sort of like like a core principle of Stoic philosophy. You will realize after a particular point in life that the external problems, solving those external problems may not necessarily solve these internal problems. Sometimes it may even seem like that, but that doesn't necessarily hold true in the long term. For example, you want to buy a car, you want to buy the newest Porsche, maybe that's the Porsche Taycan Turbo S, that runs around for like $250,000, something like that. You're really into cars, let's say. I'm really into cars. I'm not like that really into cars that I can, name every single car and stuff, but I have a fair bit of interest in cars. So let's say I want to buy that car and I'm just really excited about it. I save a lot of money for that particular car. But what sort of like happens is I buy that car and in 6 months time, everything gets back to zero. The score is settled. The playing field is just settled. And in terms of psychology, if you want to sort of like dig deeper into that, it is called as the hedonic treadmill. Psychologists over these years have observed that your happiness sort of like goes up and down with these things. You want to buy a new car. Amazing. Buy that. And then you'll realize your happiness goes back again to zero. You want to buy a new house. Same thing. You really like this girl. Maybe that's your girlfriend now. You're happy for a couple of days. In 6 months time, again zero. Everything. That's associated with everything. You want to buy a new watch. You want to, buy a ship. You want to buy a plane. A lot of people are like, I want to have a private jet. I want to have this, that. Fine. Have these desires. But end of the day, you'll realize that you're sitting in this hedonic treadmill, as psychologists like to call it. And after a particular time phase, all of these things will come back again to zero. And when you live a very simple life, sticking to your rituals, sticking to your daily routine, you do not get faked. You do not get fooled into thinking that solving your external problems will solve your internal problems. You're just content with yourself. You do understand at a core level that your problems are completely something else, and solving your external problems will at max make you feel good for a day or two, and that's it. So more importantly, you begin to notice what your problems are and why you were wrong about them. So that brings us to the second part of the video, and that is how to kind of like maintain that particular lifestyle, how to get in this like flow state where you live to your set of principles that you have set out for yourself, your daily rituals, your habits, or your routines, whatever you want to call it. Full disclosure, I don't necessarily think that I've got to that point. Specifically in the Eastern school of thought, since I live in India, I'm fairly aware of the terms. It is called as sadhana, I think, in Hindu texts. If you go back, refer the ancient old text, and when I look back at these guys who were meditating for years and years, if that's true, let's say, and I believe that's true to a fair degree, I don't really think that I'm that content with myself who have like reached that level of spiritual enlightenment, let's say. But I think I have gained it. I won't just fake it. Some people try to like fake it so that they sound wise enough and a bunch of stuff. I'll completely accept that. I have a lot of desires. I have a ton of them. I try my best to control my urge, but to a fair degree, I think I'm content with myself. And when I say something like that, I'm comparing myself to the masses, just for context. So I think the only way to achieve this, and I'm sort of like moving in this direction little by little every day, is, I've already said it, is being content with yourself. What does that even mean, and how do you achieve that particular state? So there are a couple of things that you have to consider. First of all, you have to realize what your true calling is, what your quest is. Think about this from playing a video game. You are playing an RPG. What is your quest? What is the main mission? Where is this entire story leading to? What are you even supposed to do in the long term? Number second, build good habits. It's extremely difficult to build those good habits, but once you sort of like get in this position where you build those good habits, it will just lead you to endless opportunities. I mean, I cannot even define it in words. Every single thing that you want in life will be fulfilled if you have good habits. You just have to build good habits and make sure that you don't take your foot off the gas. And one day, sure enough, you'll reach your destination. And at last, learn to embrace every experience of life. And it doesn't really matter whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, because every experience sort of like leads to something. And more importantly, after a particular point in life, you'll realize that your life isn't infinitely long. It will end at a particular point of time. And I think I've said it a couple of times, but one of my favorite quotes in the world of philosophy comes from Confucius, where he says that every man has two lives, and the second one starts when he realizes he only has one. So I think I would like to end this video on this particular note. So yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. If you made it this far, make sure you guys like this video, because that tells me that you're full of energy and you're pumped. And if this is your first time on this channel, my name is Deergh Kataria. I'm a computer science student by profession, and I make YouTube videos on the side. And on this particular channel, I teach people how to optimize their lives, how to make better systems, and that goes to a variety of topics, like video essay like this one. Maybe that's, a book review, maybe me going through a bunch of philosophical stuff, story time, any of that kind of stuff. So if that's something that particularly interests you, consider subscribing. So yeah, that's it from my side. I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace. Bye bye.